Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another great spotlight session. Today we have part 2 of our New Jersey Septic Management course, taught by Tom Cahill, who's here again, who's going to go over the information and give us the rest of part 2. So I will let him take it over. Let me share my screen. And this is where we left off last time.
And where should I be looking for people in the TV? Where's the camera?
Right here.
Okay, and they can see me.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can see you.
Don't go way over there.
Yeah. Everybody can see you and
My back.
all that good stuff. But yeah, you're good to go.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Tom Cahill, Septic Inspection Supervisor for New Jersey Septic Management Group. We left last week talking about the drain fields, and I realized that I had talked to the people who are here live in the office about these filters at the end, and I didn't take time to show those of you at home. Within the septic tank, as of 2012, it's required to have filters in septic tanks. The filter captures sewage material and doesn't allow it to go out to the drain field. Sewage materials going out to the drain field will clog the drain field, shorten its life. So you want to stop that from happening. Modern septic tanks have an inlet baffle. This is a part of the tank. Inside the tank, this will be connected to the outlet pipe going out to the drain field. The water is at this level operationally, and the floating materials, scum, fats, greases, toilet paper are floating here. At the bottom is sewage material, and water is filling the space in between. Water is flowing out through here, coming up through this filter. Multiple levels, multiple layers that capture all of the sewage materials, and then the wastewater itself, clarified wastewater without all that crap in it, will go out to the drain field. Cleaner water because of that filter. The filter will clog, has to be cleaned periodically. Typically, our service program offers twice a year cleaning. We pull the filter out, we hose it clean, we bang it off, we reinsert it. At that time, we'll add Bio 1, that live bacteria product, to the tank to help that to work better. Many older tanks have baffles that won't allow that modern style filter, which case we have this kind of filter. It's called a bristle filter. Basically, those of you who have raised children, looks like a big baby bottle brush. This thing is inserted in the baffle of older tanks, and it gets clogged pretty quickly. And 2 to 3 times a year, we pull it out. This does not get cleaned. This goes in the garbage because it's impossible to clean. It's so gunked up. But this filter, again, goes a long way toward extending the life of the drain field, because all the stuff that's caught here isn't going out to the drain field. Only water is passing through. And the water going to the drain field is what we want, because that water is going down through the earth to be filtered, purified, become drinking water. We want that to be as clean as possible. If sewage materials are going out, it's contaminating drinking water, killing off the drain field sooner. That's very expensive. If someone had to replace a septic system, 2/3 the cost of a septic system is the drain field. In New Jersey, the Princeton, New Jersey area, septic systems can cost $50,000 to $60,000. Other places in the country, even other places in New Jersey, they are cheaper, but nothing is cheaper in the Princeton area. And when you look at 50 to 60,000, 2/3 of that cost is the drain field. So if we said 60,000, just make math easier, 2/3 is 40,000 is the drain field. We want that to last as long as possible. Typically, septic tanks will last 50 years. It's 4.5-inch thick concrete, it can last a good long time. Drain fields will last 25 to 30 years. We will often replace the drain field once, keeping the septic tank, then the second time around the whole system gets replaced. But obviously, with that great expense, if you said 40,000 could be the drain field, you want that to last as long as possible. That's what service programs are about. Okay. Just to help make that clearer, we do have pricing involved with that. Basically, it's hundreds of dollars per component for the service program. We having issues?
No, you're okay. Can you
Okay.
split screen so we can see what he's showing and talking?
Did you mind reading
You guys couldn't see that?
just
Here, we'll show it again.
last?
Yeah, we can
That
now.
last one that you just said about the last.
So this is what he was talking about. With the filter that gets cleaned out and goes inside. This pipe is usually filled with water inside the tank. All the materials go inside of here. This gets pulled out, rinsed out, washed off, and everything. And then they have a brush
For the older tank.
for the older tanks. For the older tanks, they use one of these. And they just go in and like get all the gunk and stuff like that out and clean it, and then they throw this away because yeah.
You can't clean that. It's nasty.
And they get rid of that. Everyone cool?
Thanks, Lawrence. Yeah, that helps.
You're welcome. See, I'm an expert at this now. I'm giving the next presentation on septic.
Well, maybe we can just hear him talk and then it'll be more clear. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So last time we were beginning to talk about septic system drain fields, and the older style systems often had a gravity flow system. If we look at the diagram, we're talking about to the left here, the older ones didn't have a layer of sand underneath them necessarily. We just had the distribution box going out lateral pipes, the drain pipes, and the water would trickle down through a layer of drainage gravel into the earth below. More modern systems, since the septic code was updated in most recently, the newer code was 1990, and then it was updated 2012. And when they did that, they required a layer of drainage gravel underneath it, because now we have what's referred to as the zone of treatment. It used to be that possibly septic system drain fields would dump water directly into the water table. Now they have to test, and they have to have at least a 4-foot separation between the bottom of drainage gravel where the water is trickling down before it enters the water table. We need 4-foot separation. That's called the zone of treatment before it enters the zone of disposal. So when we get that, many older basic systems were gravity flow, where the water from the tank just flows out by gravity. Often we'll have a pump involved where it could be gravity dosed, and sometimes it would be pressure dosed, where a pump is pushing the water out. And by pressure, it's almost an underground sprinkler system that's spraying down into the gravel. When in fact we have a pump involved and it's a sprinkler type system, a gravity dose, a pressure dose system, the drain field can be reduced by 1/3 because it's that much more efficient. Instead of this big area, we're reducing it by 1/3. And again, if you look at the idea of how costly it is, reducing it by 1/3 is saving money. So often people will go with pressure dose systems.
Is that a special stand?
No, it's really not. It's it has to be a certain size, but it's your basic playground sand. The same stuff you have in the kids' sandbox.
The sand that was used in the 80s and 90s was approved by the state
Yes,
at
sir.
that point, but the sand used today is different than that sand. So there's two different types of
I
sand.
wouldn't say so. It's still approved because sand can be very messed up and have all kinds of contaminants. It has to be clean, certainly.
Different type of sand. Confirm that with me, please.
Yeah, I'm just curious when you say different type of sand, because I know, again, the state approves the quarries that we get it from, but it's the same basic sands that we use as for concrete work or for child
If you
playground.
confirm that for me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear what we're talking about. I don't know what is it exactly you're asking me to confirm?
Two different types of sand have a different, I would say, maybe long-term absorption rate.
Well, that's exactly true. Some are acceptable and some are not. They give us a standard range, and the sand always has to be tested and showed that the sand we're using, an engineer tested to show that the sand we're using fits that range as approved by the state.
Yeah, and the state approved a particular type of sand in the 80s and 90s that's no longer approved today in the 2020s.
Yeah, that was an issue sometimes. We had this older material that often clogged quickly. And when we would do inspections of older systems, sometimes we would find that, and we knew that that should have been replaced with the basic new ones. When the first code was approved in 90, they had certain kind of material, and it took a couple of years to realize that was not the best draining material. So systems that were built, that were newer systems built according to code, were in fact failing quickly. And that's what you're referring to, I
So
think.
now if I'm in a system where it has, we call it old sand, or sand appropriate at that time, it's almost like, maybe I have to replace all the sand.
In truth, this long after the fact, all of those would have failed and or been replaced. I doubt that there are any of those old types that are still around, because they would have died some time ago, for sure. It became an issue because time and again, we would do inspections, people go, it's a new system. Yeah, but they used the wrong stuff. As approved by the state, as approved by engineers, it still was wrong. And that created problems because nobody took responsibility for that. Be nice if there was some financial responsibility and the state and or engineers said, okay, we'll pay you for your loss. But many homeowners had to replace systems much sooner than they should have because we have a new system, it's good. Yeah, but they put the wrong stuff in.
Might be like Sandy Hook sand as opposed to like Cape May sand.
That's to do with absorption.
That's already contaminated, that sand.
The old stuff, the
The
bad
super
stuff
core.
clogged more quickly. And that was the issue. So thank you for reminding me, pointing that out. It's been some time since we've dealt with that. With the years, all of that has pretty much been replaced at this
Well,
point.
again, that's 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, any and all of those would have failed and or been replaced.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't have to replace the sand. I don't know. Every system's separate problem.
Well, with the idea that the water has to drain down through the sand, there's no way it's getting into the earth without passing through the sand. So it's rare for sand to not have to be replaced. Anyway, thank you for reminding me about that issue. That was, it's been some time since we've dealt with that. So when we're going into these systems here and dealing with the drain fields, these days your modern drain field will in fact have the layer, a 4-foot layer of sand as the zone of treatment. And then below that is referred to as the zone of disposal, where that clarified wastewater is now entering the water table below. And if we go to the next slide, please. Oh, this is just a picture. When we're talking about drainage components, some properties, if the water table is deep enough, we can have a seepage pit. Seepage pits, when we test, honestly, we have to show that the water table is 8 feet below the proposed bottom of a seepage pit. Seepage pits are 6 feet deep, buried in the ground, and then 8 feet below that will be the water table. So we're talking about a water table 14 feet or more deep. And we'll find that along the Delaware River, some places up around Bergen County. If the property is smaller, you don't have maybe the room for a very large drain field, but the water table is deep enough, that allows seepage pits. And depending on number of bedrooms, you would have 1, 2, 3, even 4 seepage pits as your drainage area instead of a big drain field. Now, it's similar to a cesspool.
I was just thinking that.
Except that all of the sewage materials are removed in the tank and only clean water is going into this pit as the drainage component. You're not dumping sewage into this. That's the big difference as far as an upgrade. So we do run into seepage pits occasionally, certain properties with the water table very deep. You can't put that where it's sitting in the water table because that can cause contamination. You still want to have some filtration in the soil before the wastewater enters the water table. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk about changes in the septic code, and I'm going to pull that still up again before I start some recording. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. So, the old code, which basically was part of the public health code. I'm trying to move your way to it. Anyway, back as far as 1967, the previous wastewater treatment regs were around, and those of us that were working with septic matters before the 1990 newer code, we would often have to refer to sometimes health regulations. It was interesting. At any rate, as of 1990, and then again revised in 2012, big changes in the septic code where the volume of wastewater per person per day were recalculated. Septic tank material sizes and shapes were changed in terms of what was acceptable and used. Advanced treatment technologies were allowed. Then it was required to have a zone of treatment to protect the groundwater and then a proper zone of disposal. And so next slide, we're going to click into some details here. When we talk about the volume of wastewater per day, it's since 1990, it's been calculated when we're determining sizing for septic systems. Residential wastewater use is set at 200 gallons per day for the first bedroom. What in the old days, I did home inspections for 30 some years, and we used to refer to as a master bedroom. That's not a proper term these days for a number of reasons. So now it's the primary bedroom, first bedroom, whatever. But it's possible that husband, wife, and or partners of some type would be sharing a bedroom, two people in a room. Therefore, 200 gallons per day is allowed for that first bedroom. Each additional bedroom is calculated at 150 gallons per day. So if we're talking, if we look below here, a design for 2 bedrooms would in fact be 350 gallons per day, 200 plus 150. 3 bedrooms, we're adding again another 150, 500, and 4 bedrooms are adding one more 50. So 650 gallons per day for 4 bedrooms. That's important because when we're designing a system, we have to design it for how many people, how many bedrooms. Septic systems are designed according to the number of bedrooms in the house.
So you're telling me as a family of 4, we're using 500 gallons per day, or is that?
No, it's interesting. There's actually quite a bit of over design there.
Yeah.
I would say that makes sense. Yeah.
We as adults rarely use more than 80 gallons a day, with assuming you're taking baths, showers, laundry, all that is added into your use. When you consider that, there's an over design built in so that if you in fact had a house with 3 bedrooms, 500 gallons per day, and you have mom, dad, a kid or two, you have room to have guests stay over without overloading your system. There's an over design that's a part of this. And that's good for everyone to be aware of. It's like, oh my God, we're not up against that. It's not, we're not pushing it that bad. We don't use that much water. It's remarkable, but this is an allowance to be sure that we don't hurt the systems by using too much. Now, interestingly, the minimal design is right here. It's for a 1-bedroom apartment or residence. The minimal design, though, according to the state, is 350. Now, again, if we look, originally the 350 would have been for 2 bedrooms, but by allowing that for a 1-bedroom apartment or residence, 350 gallons a day, there's room for you to have a day bed and have guests stay over, whatever, without hurting the system. That's the reality. But they did that to be sure that people with 1 bedrooms, they're figuring that they will have people over, and they wanted to ensure that there's not some overuse and hitting it bad. So by requiring a minimal of 350 for 1 bedroom, then they're sure that nothing will hurt it. Now, commercial water use is very different depending on the type of business, number of users. Some commercial properties have bathrooms, some have kitchens, some don't. And the number of users, all of that is taken into account. So commercial water use is different with every kind of business, how large, how many people, all of that makes a difference for commercial use. Very different than residential. Residential is a very basic calculation. And then when we calculate the gallons per day, then we have other standards that determine how big the drain field has to be. And that's a separate issue. So next slide, please. Excuse me?
It's like 2 tons of water.
Oh, it's a lot of water. It's really, yes, it's amazing. But again, these calculations, it's all about over design to be sure that we're not easily hurting the system. It's interesting. For the longest time, when I was inspecting septic systems, older septic systems seemed like forever they had steel tanks in the ground. Guess what? It finally became clear to everyone that steel corrodes in the ground. Steel doesn't like moisture, and you get rust and decay, and they would crumble, rot, and collapse. So one time it was thought steel tanks will last forever. No, steel tanks are not allowed anymore because they did collapse. They did corrode. And nowadays, tanks are made of poured in-place concrete or precast concrete, fiberglass or poly. As a company, we don't like to work with the fiberglass or poly. When you have that tremendous pressure under the ground, the weight and all that, we don't find that they withstand that well. They're certified as such, and you have to be careful not putting it too deep and all, but we very much prefer working with the concrete. We will almost always use the concrete rather than the poly or the fiberglass. In fact, the fiberglass, it's been shown, if that's exposed to sunlight, the fiberglass begins to break down in the sunlight. It's not cool, but I mean, most of the time it's all completely buried, so that's not much of a concern, but it just doesn't hold up the way the concrete does. And all septic tanks are tested for water tightness. Every time one tank is installed, you have to prove to the health department that it's watertight. They do a water tightness test. You fill it up and prove that it's not leaking in front of the health inspector when you're installing the tank. All tanks.
Talk about pressure.
Yes. And what a pain in the neck when it's leaking. It's like, get that tank out of here and bring me another one. That's not cool. And it messes up your job schedule for sure. All tanks have to be NSF certified. That's a national standard. At the manufacturing plant, they have to be certified that actually, NSF certification has to do with a lot of things in our day-to-day life to show that things do not mess up our health. Simple matter that we're using. Kitchen tools and implements are NSF certified. So they have to be sure that tanks on a property aren't in fact causing any kind of health or environmental problems. That's a national certification. And as we said, tanks are sized according to the number of bedrooms. Now, in 2012, prior to 2012, with the 1990 code, we would sometimes have 350-gallon bedrooms because, tanks, because we only had 1 or 2 bedrooms. 350 made sense. 500-gallon tanks were a possible thing that we worked with, 750. It soon became clear that when you have tanks that are smaller, the sewage material coming from the house would come in and go right out of the tank. There wasn't room for settling and separation. So they realized over time that the further away the inlet and outlet baffle are, now you have that distance that allows that separation. So sewage coming from the house comes in, drops to the bottom, the lighter fat hair grease comes to the top, sewage drops to the bottom, and clarified water goes out of the tank through the filter, hopefully. But that distance is what makes the change. So as of 2012, when the code is updated, no tanks smaller than 1,000 gallons are now allowed. So even though the original calculation was so many gallons per person now it's very clear that nothing smaller than 1,000 gallons. If you have the rectangular tank, the typical tanks we're using these days, the inside length has to be at least twice the width. Again, that's to give that distance for settlement and separation. And the inside length cannot be less than 72 inches, which basically matches the 1,000 gallons or more. Interestingly, in the old days, we would sometimes have round tanks, the steel tanks, and sometimes fiberglass tanks were round, and these strange balls in the ground. I didn't like them because they would tend to float more often. But if in fact the round tank is still going to be used, again, we have to have that distance between. So if that distance between the inlet and the outlet has to be at least 72 inches, that makes for a very big round tank. So they're almost never used these days. When I say round, I mean actually spherical, like a sphere, not just. And it's interesting because in the old days, all tanks were round, and these days they're all long rectangular boxes. Makes a big difference with the way systems are done. Okay, next slide, please.
So when someone adds on to their home, this is a huge consideration. They have to,
You're adding a bedroom?
well, yeah, if somebody's adding on to a home,
Mhm.
then this is also something they have to consider into the price of an addition.
Yes, and you're not just adding to the size of the tank, but the drain field also has to be upsized because more wastewater is being introduced.
And that's certainly something, it's a bedroom you're adding, not just a family room.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That makes all the difference. When you're doing an addition, it depends. Are we doing something that's going to change the number of residents? If it's simply more recreational space to enjoy our home, will there be extra? No additional occupants, then the septic doesn't have to be changed necessarily. That's all part of the design. Absolutely. So that was a good point. Thank you. In 1990, with our newer septic code, the government allowed for experimental systems to be put into systems for testing purposes. And as of April 2nd, 2012, that was the latest update of the septic code. Those experimental systems were all allowed and approved. And now many systems have those experimental type components that allow drain fields to be smaller because systems are much more efficient now than they used to be. So instead of experimental, they're established technologies, and the older technologies are phased out. And we have a few pictures of different types that we're talking about coming up. Actually, it's a later slide, I think, but you can go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
The one previous to that. There you go. And as a part of the improved technology, that's when, as of April 2nd, 2012, effluent filters that I just showed you before were required in tanks. So this is the new modern style tank. Again, the best that we can do is to put two compartments so the wastewater from the one spills over and again settles. So we have primary and secondary settlement. Then the wastewater goes up and out through that filter. And that filter clogs, has to be cleaned periodically. These photos show we have older style. We actually work with 4-inch filters for existing tanks where they'll fit, the 6-inch that I have here today. And then we have for the existing older style, the bristle filter that will go in. And again, that's pulled out and just basically put in the garbage. But these are cleaned and reinserted. In this photo, we also have some that are used for commercial use. These are great big monster filters in big tanks to capture more wastewater than a residence will have. But the filter helps to keep the drain field clean. It's very important when you have one to have somebody clean it, or we do have occasional homeowners that will do it. They'll get in and they'll pull it out and God bless them. It's not pretty work. And just last week, I was doing a conference with homeowners, and the Mrs. homeowner is in fact the one who cleans the filter. That's the first in all my years that a woman has done it. Most of the time, like, yeah, my husband deals with that. It's not, so it's rare because it's a nasty job.
Well, we gave them right to vote. They should clean the system. How dare you say that?
You caught him on that one.
Next slide, please.
Go for president.
So again, as of the newer code in 1990, they required a zone of treatment. That's the upper 4 feet of fill under the drainage gravel. And it's below the level of infiltration is the drainage gravel. That's where that zone of treatment, that basic sand, is filtering. It removes the pollutants from the septic tank. It's a physical filtration and a biological destruction of pathogens. There are bacteria in it that capture. It's amazing how this really treats the soil. Then under that is a layer of the zone of disposal where the wastewater, after it's been filtered, so it goes through the drainage gravel, all of which is covered with bacteria that's capturing pathogens and germs. Then it goes through the 4 foot of sand. Then it goes into the layer below zone of disposal, where it basically goes down and joins the water table. And if the water table is higher, all of this has to be raised up because these zones are required. And that gets interesting. That's how we get into our mounded systems, which are coming up. Next slide, please. So that's what we're talking about. We have the zone of treatment. Then we have a zone of disposal, and that's when the water table is here. And as required, if the water table is higher, all of this is still required, and therefore that's raised up. That's why we have these bumps in the ground, these raised mounds, because we still need that 4 foot layer of treatment, 4 foot layer of disposal before we have the water table. That's what that's about. And that's all since the new code.
Oh, that makes so much sense now.
Now, if we go to the next slide, you'll see we have a representation. And here we go. So the seasonal water table is coming up. It's 12 inches, so it's down here. As it gets closer to the ground surface, seasonal water tables here. Therefore, we end up with this little bit of a mound because, again, this has to be right there. The zone of treatment is at the top of the water table. The zone of disposal can join the water table because that's clarified water. The zone of treatment is our 4 foot above. So if the water table is closer to the surface, guess what? This is going to be higher. And as that becomes higher, it also becomes bigger to support that. You can't have
Right.
deep walls. You have to build it. So when you go to a property and you're looking, you go, you've got a high water table. That's what that's about. Yes, there. Big problem area. Absolutely. So 4 bedroom sizing.
That makes so much sense.
50 by 23 would be the size of the drain field. That's pretty big. But with the actual slope size, 64 by 37, because again, your drain field 50 by 23, but the slope size, because you can't have it too steep, it gets that much bigger, all depending on where your water table is in the ground. That's what that's about. Okay,
Hmm.
next slide. I think we talked a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I'm like still looking at this.
Oh, okay. Well, we have more about this.
Oh, okay.
So when we do soil logs to test the ground to see where the water table is, we're looking to see indications of what the seasonal high water table is. That's different possibly than depending on time of year. Oh, right now we're seeing water sitting here. Yes, but the engineer is looking at the staining in the soil caused by when the water table was at its highest, often during the spring. It actually, there's an oxidation reduction in the soil where it changes the color. So engineers, when they look into the soil, can see where the high water table was, even though the water table is not there when they're testing. Water's here, but we can see from the staining that in the spring it was up to here. They have to design according to that higher level so that it's not contaminated in the spring when it comes up there. So okay, we're looking, water table's here. Yeah, but the seasonal high water table is here, therefore 4 feet above that. Now we're up here, and that's what we're looking at. And again, as your top gets bigger, the sides get bigger because we have to have a decent slope. You can't be steep drop off. We have to be able to come up and down a certain percentage incline is part of it. You got to be able to get up with your mower, and many people like to use that slope area as they'll put a badminton court up there or, lawn chairs and whatnot and sit up there. You don't want to do gardening or something that'll disturb the septic necessarily, but you can make use of that area. It's not radioactive. You just have to watch what you're doing. And that big mound is problematic for a lot of people because sometimes my backyard is a big mound and there's nothing to be done. There is technology with advanced technology, you can reduce that mound, and that makes all the difference for a lot of people. It gets real interesting. So next slide. So we can do ATU is a pressure dosed system. And with that, again, we have the same high water table that we had there, but with the pressure dose system, we can reduce that separation. Instead of that 4 foot separation, we can reduce it to 12, sometimes 18 inches, worst case. But from 4 foot to 18 foot, we're taking 3 feet off the top. And by reducing that by 3 feet, we're bringing in the sides too. So we're making a huge difference just by using advanced technology. The HU is just it's a advanced treatment tank. Is all we're doing. We're digesting the sewage better, which makes the wastewater cleaner, and therefore the drain field can be reduced. It's remarkable, the use of modern technology. So when people, if the water table would tell them, oh, you've got to have a raised mound, and people don't want a raised mound, well, we put in advanced technology. We don't have to have much of a raised mound. Sometimes it reduces it all completely. Makes a world of difference. Okay, next slide, I think actually shows us, yes. So in some cases, we have this where the seasonal water table was here, but with the advanced technology pressure dose system, we've actually eliminated the mound altogether, and that's a possibility. So all depending on where your water table is, but the use of advanced technology makes all the difference in terms of that mound. Used to be, oh my God, I've got a mound, what are we gonna? And now there's ways to deal with that. And at the design level is perfect, but we have replaced many big mounds by putting advanced technology. We've eliminated those mounds, and we have photo after photo properties before and after. What a remarkable change, because sometimes that mound is in the front yard. You can't even see the windows of the house. So you get rid of that, and it's like, wow, look at this. We've opened the property up. It's remarkable.
What's like the price difference, would you say, between the two?
The advanced technology is possibly 25% to a third more
Mhm.
than the standard. So, again, when we're talking about septic systems maybe being 50 or 60,000, so an advanced treatment system, if you said another 10 or 12,000 possibly, but the difference of what you can get out of that.
Right, makes a big
huge
difference,
for the
right.
property, absolutely.
Mhm.
All right, very good. Next slide, see what we got here. So when we can do that, obviously, we're making the yard more usable for recreation purposes, and it makes a world of difference. And these days, more and more systems are working with the advanced technology. Makes all the difference in the world. And that's, I think, where we're gonna leave it today, because we jump into quiz and whatnot after that, and I don't think we want to deal with that today. What I'd like to do is take a minute to talk about the paperwork that I left last time. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to review it, look at any of that.
Mhm.
Okay, we can take a couple minutes to talk about that. I just want to point out, what's of value to your company. Be able to look at everything on this.
So when you guys come in, we all have these folders that he left us that have like a bunch of like really good information. Stuff you can use for your clients, stuff that can, help you like a pre-listing inspection, like all types of good stuff he put in here. So make sure you guys come into the office and grab your folder. There's a bunch still here.
I can tell you any number of times doing inspections, and again, these days I'm not out doing inspections, but I spent the better part of my life in the field doing inspections. When we've had inspections where the inspector will go out and put his probe in the ground, poke in the drain field, and this black nasty sewage comes bubbling up. And my inspector turns and says, "How long have you been using Ridex? And how did you know that?" Ridex liquefies the sewage, which is what the company advertises. It liquefies the sewage. It leaves the tank. Guess where it goes? It goes in the drain field and clogs the drain field. So your tank isn't backing up because the sewage has been liquefied. It's flowing out with the water. You want the sewage material to stay in the tank where it accumulates and is periodically pumped out. By having it leave and go into the drain field, you are destroying the drain field. And again, the drain field is 2/3 the cost of the system.
Right.
So, we use Ridex, and you're going to be paying for a new drain field pretty quickly. At one point, I had one of the guys representing the Ridex company call us as a septic company. They wanted us to carry barrels of Ridex. I said, "Do you have any idea what your product does to septic systems?" "Well, our chemists assure me that it breaks down sewage." "Yeah, did they tell you where it goes after it's broken down?" "What are you talking about?" I said, "It goes out to the drain field and clogs it and destroys it." I don't know anything about this." It's like, okay, yeah, you guys as chemists, you're clear that Ridex breaks down the sewage, which is all they advertise on the
Right.
commercial. But boy, it destroys the drain field, and that's a big ticket that homeowners are eating. It's a shame. It really is that that's allowed.
Question.
Yes.
Is it a preferred time? Of course, everybody likes to work during the summertime because it's beautiful, it's sunny, it's perfect. But what is the perfect time during the year to do the maintenance or the pumping or, flushing?
Actually, the pumping of a tank has to do with the accumulation, which is all about number of people in the home. So typically, a family of 4 will pump out the tank every 3 years. If you have more people than that, you're doing it more frequently. If you have regular guests stay over.
Within the year, within the season of the years, of the year, is it a preferred time for?
No, we actually, we pump out tanks every day of every month of the year.
Because it's warm.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that is an issue more for homeowners than the septic companies. It can be a real pain in the neck for a septic company to go out and the ground is frozen and you got to chop through ice to get to the tank and whatnot.
Yeah.
So in that case, for the septic companies doing the work, we would prefer to be warmer, and the dead of winter isn't the best time. But we get calls, middle of winter, my tank's backing up, and we got to get in there and chop through the ice and get through the snow, and because people need the system to function. Nobody wants sewage backing up to their homes. So, but yeah, it's interesting. We do pumping every day of the week, all year long.
Thank you.
Surely, not a problem at all. So anyway, when I was talking, this blue folder I gave out, one of the more important things that we have in here, first of all, when our sheet that says don't let the septic be a deal breaker, we know that when we do our inspections, we do a lot of different things, pay attention to certain details that other companies
Can you guys
don't.
see that? Here, let's do it this way.
And after we do an inspection, we always do offer a Zoom conference with the customers where most especially for those customers that aren't familiar with septic systems, we show them diagrams. I typically do these and sometimes the owner of the company does the presentation. And I've got 3 of them lined up today, actually, when I get back. With that Zoom presentation,
There we
we
go.
can explain to people what it is to live with a septic system, show them the components they have, and we'll review. We have a nice page.
Here, you guys can scan this
Do's
QR code.
and don'ts for the.
It takes you to a
give the
presentation.
Customer. We give that to every customer when we do inspections for them. Commonly asked question. I'm looking to see where that is in this folder. But the septic system do's and don'ts, we have actually translated into multiple languages for our customers. Our surprising big popular one is Mandarin. There's a lot of Chinese speaking that love our Mandarin do's and don'ts. There we go. And our septic do's and don'ts have a lot to do with just day-to-day items such as what kind of laundry detergent to use, what not to put in the septic system. Do spread the laundry out through the week. Do use water conserving devices. Clean the lint trap periodically, and then acceptable products, the kind of detergents, the kind of toilet paper.
Oh,
And every time we do.
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to find
we
it.
always get to the customer this thing to help the septic system last longer. It really helps a lot for those people that are not familiar with septic systems. And at all times, we are available for any calls or questions relating to that septic system. Certainly, if we did the inspection, happy to talk to and answer any and all questions related to that.
This is a big thing to have, guys. I agree with having this with you when you're dealing with clients that have septic and you go to their house, you have this whole checklist of, good insight you can give them.
There's a lot of information. We have a lot of materials that you can use for your clients to not be so concerned. Those that are not familiar with septic systems, all of this stuff will help them to be less concerned and
Right.
realize that living with a septic system doesn't have to be a big problem.
Right, like working with buyers would be this would be good for them, like people that aren't familiar with septic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world. Okay.
I agree.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any particular questions going forward?
Do you guys have any questions online? Comments, concerns?
Hello, Lawrence. Good morning, everyone. I just posted a question. What maintenance do we need for the septic tanks apart from pumping them every 2-3 years?
Actually, the filter in a tank should be cleaned twice a year. And as you said, the septic tank has to be pumped periodically. That really is all that's required of maintenance in septic tanks.
Thank you.
There's not that much to that.
Yeah, it seems, I don't know, I guess you overthink it when you think about a system and all the stuff and all the components. You're like, oh, well, I probably got to do this, do this.
No.
And
Again, if you have a company doing the maintenance program every 6 months, we're coming out and giving you a mini report card. We're checking the components, we're cleaning the filter, we're just sticking a tank to tell the homeowners the sewage is accumulating and in 2 years you have to pump it. 2.5 years you need to pump it. And when we do that, then we add the Bio 1 to help the system last longer, give half the bottle to the homeowner, putting it in the drains. It helps to keep that odor free, no clogging. And no, it's remarkable how little the homeowner actually has to do. Basically, their biggest concern is to be careful what they're putting into it.
Right.
Don't flush a lot of junk down there. Paint is not a good thing. Hazardous chemicals. You have to be careful with that. Septic system, basically, you're going to the bathroom and what you're flushing down the toilet is what's supposed to be going out to the septic system.
Right. So like dumping oil, like,
Not
frying
what you
oil
want to
and
do.
all types of stuff like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that anyway.
That's right.
But especially not with septic.
Sometimes people do.
Yeah, people do. Yeah.
Cleaning their oil paintbrushes. That's not good into the
It's an outside
Big and
thing.
fat.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. We have a question. Go ahead, Abhishek.
Hey, thanks for doing this. So, a quick question is, I have heard from people that don't use that. What is that sink? What is that called? Sink. You put that machine in the sink, it crushes.
Disposal.
Oh,
Disposal.
a garbage disposal.
Yeah,
Garbage. Well,
yeah.
that would typically be under the sink.
Spinable.
And in Montgomery Township, that's illegal, actually.
Hmm.
Montgomery will issue a fine if they find that you have a garbage disposal under the sink. Garbage disposals are not good for septic systems. That ground up material doesn't settle in a tank and it ends up swirling and floating and goes out and clogs the drain field. Or if you have a filter in the tank, all that swirling stuff will clog the filter very quickly and you'll end up with a backup or overflow. So garbage disposals are not allowed. And when we are involved in home inspections, well, we do septic inspections, but we look at that matter as a part of it. We're very clear to people, you have to get that garbage disposal out. It's interesting because when I do these reviews with people buying a septic system that are not familiar with it, they've lived with garbage disposal all their life. And the first thing they can think of is, we're going to put one in our house. It's like, no, you don't want to do that. Big difference. It's tough because they're used to conveniences.
Yeah.
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 I have seen one more thing. Every time we walk into some homes with the septic systems, the pipes which are exposing out, they are broken because lawnmowers go over them and all that stuff, and they are open and the lid is broken. Is that okay and safe?
First of all, the pipes that are standing up in the yard are ports in the corners of the drain field. And they were typically left standing up at the time of construction as markers, so people wouldn't damage the drain field. When that job was finished, those ports should have been cut down to ground level and capped. And that cap should be at a level that the mower can go over easily without a problem. Those are ports through the layer of drainage gravel so that a homeowner could look down and see how well the gravel is draining. They're not functional components. They can be removed. They're not connected to the plumbing system of the system. They're just a port that you look down and go, oh, it's draining or not draining, whatever information that means to you. But they're often chopped by a mower and they get filled with leaves and grass and clog and old water, and they become useless over time. But if they're removed, if they're not there at all, the system works just fine. It's not a problem.
Oh,
But
great.
they can be cut down. We actually offer a service where we'll cut them down to make things look nicer.
No, I opened mine the other day after our conversation because there was a back one, but it looked like it was mostly filled with sand anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Is that pretty normal?
Yeah, when they put it down in the ground, they're pushing through a layer of sand, so you'll see that often when you're looking down through that.
So I'm just making sure there's no water in there.
Yes, that's what you're looking at, absolutely.
Cool.
And yeah, that's good, but did it have a cap on it?
Yeah,
Okay, because a lot of times, like that person said, a lot of times they're chopped by the mower and it's just an exposed pipe. It's like, what is this thing? And sometimes they're this high and it's an eyesore and nobody thinks they can be cut down. We do that on a regular basis.
I drove around after our last,
Oh,
and I was like, why don't you cut this down?
Yeah, I always see really tall ones on like the mounds and stuff like that.
They're left over from the initial installation.
I don't think homeowners know they can do
They
that.
don't, and it's a shame. Like we should knock on the door and give handouts out. You know those pipes there?
Yeah, you can get rid of them.
They're
Yeah.
not functional
By the way, I
components.
could sell your house.
They were markers for the drain field during construction. What
Right.
They are, and
Huh.
but the contractor just being lazy and sloppy in some cases and leaving, it's like, you should have, your last step on the property is cut that down and make it look nice for the homeowner.
Yeah.
And people will live with that for dozens of years.
Yeah, that's
not
what I mean.
knowing.
I've sold a couple houses with
Yes.
septic that still had like the really tall.
And you're thinking, oh, that's just septic.
I thought it
field.
was-
What are we gonna do? That's good.
I'm like, oh, that's how we know it's there.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I guess.
But in
that-
fact, they can be cut down and simple caps put on that a mower can go over and not cause a problem.
They even have the brass ones so you could find them.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, so
Keep them
possible.
real low.
Good question. Very good question.
I
Thank
have
you.
another question.
Yes.
Is there any restriction to using household cleaners with bleach or ammonia?
Absolutely, absolutely. All of that will kill the bacteria in the tank and
Okay.
stop the septic system from working properly. You have to be careful with cleaning liquids like that. bleach especially, you're using it to kill germs and bacteria that digest sewage, the germs. And the bleach will hurt that big time. You have to be careful with the cleaners. There are cleaners on the market that are described as septic safe, and that's what you have to look for.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't get my white super white then.
Yeah, a lot of us have a lot of us
Yellow
lot of,
clothes.
yeah, a lot of us have these cleaning ladies who come with their own products. And I have seen my lady use Comet, the powder Comet, which is
Yes.
very cheap. Is that safe?
I would suppose in a dilute form, but if a lot of it is used, and it becomes concentrated, it will kill the septic germs. I mean, again, that's why it's used. It's a disinfectant.
Yeah, it's to kill germs, right?
Yeah.
So reality, think of, you have to sanitize some things in your house. You're gonna
Yeah,
use
but-
minimal product,
Right, like you said, you would use products that were septic safe.
like Lysol. I don't know. I'm a bleach. I don't trust it unless it's,
Yeah. There actually is a list of stuff that's considered septic.
Vinegar is the best, I think, but vinegar also too much cannot use.
It would be smart for me to memorize the list of what's in there. It's been a long time since.
But there
That's a
are a
lot to
lot of
memorize.
products. There are a lot of products which are safe. It says E on them. It says E on them. All the products which are environment safe, that bottle will have an E on them. It will tell
Okay.
you that it's safe to use for septic system.
That's important. That's good to know.
What about detergent?
Acceptable products. Detergents should be liquid form, concentrated, low sudsing, and biodegradable. Cleaning products should be non-chlorine, non-ammonia, non-antibacterial, because in fact, bacteria are what digest the sewage in the tank. If it's antibacterial, then it's going to kill it. Non-toxic and biodegradable. So we have to be a little more particular. I should try to get some name brands.
Yeah, because you need antibacterial to clean the toilet.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but if it's septic safe, I'm pretty sure they have septic safe antibacterial material, like liquids that you can use without
And again,
killing your
in
septic.
some cases, it's about the concentrations because we're talking about such great volumes of water that dilution effect makes a difference too.
Right.
Even if you put some bleach, like you said, bleaching your whites, with the laundry, it's you got a whole tank full of water and the bleach is really very diluted. It's not, you're not pouring gallons of bleach into the tank.
Something popped up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Also, I've heard that people flush yeast.
Yeast.
Yeah, we run into a number of ideas about what people do to help the system.
Well, yeast is an active.
Oh, it's gonna.
You would hope.
People believe
You would
that
hope.
will help the septic system. It actually just becomes something else that the bacteria have to break down and digest.
Right, because I'm like,
Another food product.
yeah,
Like,
yeast
there
is
are
not.
people that believe that once a month you add a cake of yeast to the tank and it's gonna help it to work better. I ran into one old timer that would throw roadkill into his tank. He believed that the rotting carcass would help to the bacteria digest
Did
it.
you
Now,
direct them to a psychiatrist?
yeah.
What?
When you talk about
Dang.
the bacteria now have to break down that carcass, I mean, it's like
What?
food product. Yeah. I mean, honestly, a dead raccoon in the tank. It's
In the tank.
it's remarkable the mindset that people have. But a lot of people, old timers, thought about.
I'm like
yeast.
floored by that logic. It's
So
like,
am I. I'm like,
To the bone, like. the
yeah,
bone.
like.
Well,
Oh,
I
10:30.
think they would break down
I know
biological
you had that
things
call.
differently.
I do.
I could shut that off. With
Okay.
But so we have to be careful about additives. They're not all the best thing for it. Again, the page of do's and don'ts is a good document to refer to.
I guess now when you put it into context, I'm only putting like 4 tablespoons of bleach into my whites.
Yeah.
And
The
I
dilution.
mean, actually, it's probably closer to 2.
It's
But
so you're good.
yeah.
The dilution effect makes all the difference in the world.
Hilarious.
The water we're flushing through the system, it really breaks it down. You're not putting whole gallons of bleach in.
You're not emptying your pool water into it, so you're good.
Mm.
And even that's not, that chlorine level's not that high. All right. I think that's all we have for today.
I
Thank
have
you for
one more
joining us.
last question, I guess, if
Oh, surely.
that's okay. Okay, great, thanks. So the tank, the 2 tanks, the lid which they have, the heavy duty lid, One time I saw this, the guy who came to pump the tank, when he pulled out the lid,
No.
the whole lid came off the ground, the whole thing, not just the
Uh-huh.
lid.
Yes,
So is that okay?
the lid is secured inside a rim. The rim should be secured to the tank. So the lid is bolted into the rim and the bolts are removed and the lid taken out. The rim should remain, but sometimes that rim is no longer secured. It has to be resecured. Because what happens, rainwater will get in, roots will get in underneath that, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
The tank has to
Yeah.
be sealed properly. So that rim should be secured back to the tank. And we do that on a regular basis.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Not a problem. We'll actually put a tar strip underneath it and smash the rim down and then seal that with concrete. So it's watertight.
That's
typically
best.
the way it's done.
Yeah, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Surely. All right,
Thanks
that's
a
all
lot
for
for
today. Not a
everything.
problem. I wanted to talk to Lawrence because we have a follow-up course, if you're interested in such a thing, where we get into septic system.
So you guys get me. That's the end of this session for today. We thank you for joining, and let's give Tom a great round of applause there. Yay. Everybody
Yay.
put a
Thank
little
you.
emoji on their screen like they're participating. Thank you. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Good job on internet. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank